amending the administrative code to set minimum qualifications for suppliers from which the city procures firearms and ammunition.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is actually an ordinance that I introduced, and I am thrilled to finally present it today. This ordinance is aimed at safeguarding our community's safety and ensuring fiscal responsibility. This ordinance will ensure that the city funds designated for firearms procurement by our public safety agencies, which includes the San Francisco Police Department, our Sheriff's Department, Adult Probation, and the DA's office, are exclusively allocated to vendors who adhere strictly to both state and federal firearms laws. Last year, a report by Brady United Against Violence shed light on concerning practices within law enforcement procurement across California, including right here in San Francisco. The report disclosed that over 90 law enforcement agencies in our state, including ours, collectively spent upwards of $20 million on firearms, ammunition, and related equipment from 6 federally licensed firearm dealers with documented histories of violating firearms regulations. And I'm saying this is a fact, but it's also true that this was for the most part, unwittingly, knowingly. I mean, not knowing that this was actually happening. We engaged with these vendors that had these histories without really knowing it. So this is not to call out our police department or law enforcement agencies for this. But these violations notably included failure to report sales involving multiple weapons. So we have these firearms vendors that are just not caring about the law. And we know what happens when that happens. People end up dead because of it. Also, a red flag for potential straw purchases and firearm trafficking recognized by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in these bad acts. And straw purchases are when you're not allowed to buy a gun, but you go get someone to do it for you, and then they hand it over to you. That happens frequently, and these firearm vendors are not really doing anything about it. And we continue, like I said, unwittingly to purchase firearms and ammunition from these vendors. This revelation, of course, was deeply troubling to me. I think you all know that I am someone who has been a gun violence prevention advocate since Columbine, which was 25 years ago this month. And the state of where we are in this country when it comes to the gun violence epidemic is just absolutely sickening. I was just reading the other day about a man who, in Oklahoma, who shot his wife, 3 boys, and his 10-year-old woke up and called the police to say his whole family was dead. I mean, this is not a rarity in this country where families are wiped out. And obviously you know that gun violence is now the leading cause of death of children and teens in our country. So this is a serious issue. And I think it underscores the critical need for robust vetting procedures in our procurement processes for firearms and related gear. As a city that prides itself on being a leader in gun safety, it is incumbent upon us to ensure that our law enforcement agencies exercise due diligence in selecting vendors and making such purchases. San Francisco, as a beacon of gun safety advocacy, and our law enforcement agencies share a collective responsibility to uphold the highest standards when it comes to sourcing firearms. And the evidence is clear. Firearms that are recovered in criminal incidents often trace back to vendors who have flouted federal firearms laws. By instituting rigorous vetting procedures for firearms industry vendors, we not only protect taxpayer dollars, but also mitigate the risk of perpetuating the cycle of gun violence that plagues our communities. I'm incredibly grateful for all the work and support to Deputy City Attorney Vicki Wong, the Office of Contracts Administration, and our City Administrator Carmen Chu, and the brilliant Ruth Bornstein, who's in the audience today, a lawyer and activist with Brady. I really can't thank them enough for working with us on this ordinance, and I'm also grateful to the San Francisco Police Department for the many conversations that we've had on the matter. And I understand their concerns regarding the availability of vendors who would be able to comply with these new requirements. But unless we change the laws, we're not going to change the situation. We need to use our purchasing power in a way that forces these dealers to follow the law. And I was incredibly mindful and sensitive to the concerns and included waiver provisions in the ordinance for emergencies and in the rare case where no vendor is able to comply with these minimum qualifications. And also the idea is if we're doing this in San Francisco, as we say, as goes San Francisco, so goes California, so goes the rest of the nation. We need to set an example here that when law enforcement agencies are purchasing firearms and ammunition from vendors, that vendors have to have the utmost, highest standards, and they should not flout the law. And if we don't set it here and set the example in San Francisco, no one's going to follow. So I think it is incumbent upon us to do so. Also, because, I've worked incredibly well at the San Francisco Police Department, and I want to make sure that we are in a situation that actually is going to work. So to be further responsive to their concerns, I am introducing amendments today that would really, as we create the rules, allow the San Francisco Police Department to work with our contract with OCA in a way that addresses their concerns. I have passed, you should have those amendments with you today, and I understand from the City Attorney's Office that they're non-substantive. So we would strike subsection F from section 21H.4 on page 5. And on page 5, under section 21H.5, I'm clarifying that the purchaser or her designee will issue guidance to implement this ordinance in consultation with the police department, sheriff's department, and other city departments as necessary, because I understand that the police department was worried that even if there were any type of complaints about a vendor, that would prevent them from purchasing from that vendor, but that will be able to be clarified as this moves forward because of these amendments. Let me know if you have any questions. We don't have anyone presenting on this because we've done the work, and this is the result of the work, the ordinance before you. So if I don't have any questions from my colleagues, I'm happy to just turn it over to public comment, or if anyone from the San Francisco Police Department wants to say anything. Diana? Yeah.
So I could be very brief, but first of all, good morning. My name is Diana Arrocha. I'm the Director of Policy and Public Affairs for the San Francisco Police Department. So I just want to thank Supervisor Stefani because she has worked with us tremendously to try to figure out a way where we could deal with the limited amount of vendors that we have available. At the same time, the spirit of this ordinance, I just want to be very clear that the San Francisco Police Department absolutely wants to figure out a way where we are responsible with vendors, that we work really closely with the Office of Contract Management and also contract agreements in general, so that we end up having individuals that are coming into our city contracting process that are responsible and do not have any substantive ATF violations. I think it's important for, just as the supervisor described, there is a lot of tracing that happens. There are definitely some types of ammunitions and firearms that sometimes do come into our city that provide a real risk to the streets and the issues around homicides and gun violence. And so I do want to clarify that while I appreciate just sort of figuring out the nuances of the language, the department absolutely supports the supervisor in the work of and the spirit of this ordinance. And we do appreciate the substantive edit that is right now recommended in terms of allowing us to work with OCA. So thank you, Supervisor, and we do appreciate working with you and continue working with you on this item.
Thank you. And I think it's telling as well when you say there are a limited amount of vendors available actually that aren't breaking the law in a way that would make it problematic for us. And there aren't a limited amount of gun dealers in this country. In 2022, there were nearly 78,000 licensed gun dealers in the United States. That's more than all McDonald's, Burger King's, Subway, and Wendy's locations combined, and twice the number of U.S. post offices. So we have plenty of gun dealers in this country. We just have too many gun dealers that don't think they need to follow the law. And we have a gun violence problem in this country that is not going away and is getting worse every day. So I am very happy that the San Francisco Police Department has been working with us on this, and I know after talking to Chief Scott also that this law will actually protect not only our communities, but also our police officers who are shot at when they're trying to just apprehend someone who's stealing a catalytic converter. I mean, we absolutely have to do something about the gun violence crisis in this country. So I thank you so much for working with us on this, and I know the amendments are going to solve the problems that you brought to my attention. So thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one on the roster, I think we can open up for public comment.
Yes, members of the public who wish to speak on this item should line up now along the side by the windows. All speakers will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Borenstein. I'm here on behalf of Brady United Against Gun Violence. Thank you, Supervisor Stefani, for all that you've said. There's very little to add except my appreciation to you for sponsoring it, to the committee for anticipatorily supporting it as well, to the police department, to the city attorney's office, to OCA. I know this has been a tough slog, but it's really meaningful, and I'm hopeful that not only will this stop taxpayer dollars going to dealers who aren't doing things the right way, it will incentivize them to do better in order to capture these dollars. So thank you so much. I look forward to this being enacted not too long from now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth, for all your work and for all your help.
Next speaker.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Alec Bash, and I had not planned to speak on this, but I could not resist the opportunity to say thank you, Supervisor Stefani, for doing this. This is a tremendous thing for San Francisco to be doing, and I, and I'm sure many other people who care about national issues in this country, applaud what you are doing here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do we have any additional speakers? Madam Chair, that completes our queue.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing none, public comment is now closed. So I would now like to entertain a motion to accept the amendments presented and pass this item out of committee with positive recommendation as amended.
Yeah.
Okay. Moved by Supervisor Dorsey.
Okay. On the motion to amend and forward to the full board as amended with a positive recommendation, Vice Chair Engardio. Vice Chair Engardio, aye. Member Dorsey? Member Dorsey, aye. Chair Stefani?
Aye.
Chair Stefani, aye. I have 3 ayes.
Thank you, colleagues. Madam Clerk, will you please call the next item?
Yes, item number